Okay, friends, I think you're ready for a new poem. Let's read it together, and let's try to sound as good as we sounded when we read the Itsy Bitsy Spider. I'm going to give you 3 tips to help you sound your best when you're reading this new poem. And these 3 tips will help you sound your best when you read any poem. First, we have to make sure we're reading the words correctly. Second, we have to stop and think what the poem is about. And third, we have to make our voices match the rhythm or the beat of the poem. Whew, we have a lot of work to do while we're reading this poem. But if we make sure we're doing those 3 things, I think we'll be just fine. Okay, are you ready, friends? So, the poem that we're going to read is called The Swing, and it is by a famous poet named Robert Louis Stevenson. We're going to read it together, and if you can join me while I read the words. Now, before I read it, that title of the poem, The Swing, it's already giving me a little bit of an idea of what the poem's about. What do you think the poem might be about? If the title is The Swing, tell me, what do you think the poem might be about? I agree with you. I think maybe it's about a swing in a park. Well, let's read the poem together and see if we're right, okay? The Swing. How do you like to go up in a swing, up in the air so blue? Oh, I do think it is the pleasantest thing ever a child can do. Up in the air and over the wall, till I can see so wide, rivers and trees and cattle and all over the countryside. Till I look down on the garden green, down on the roof so brown. Up in the air I go flying again, up in the air and down. What did you think of that poem? I liked it too. So just like avid poetry readers, we're going to reread that poem more than one time because avid poetry readers read a poem over and over and over until the tune is right, the rhythm is right, and the feeling is right. Now remember those 3 tips I told you about that will help you to read poetry? The first tip was we have to be able to read the words. And the second tip was to really think what the poem is about. Now that we read the poem through one time, what is this poem all about? Turn to your partner and tell them. Discuss with them, what is the poem The Swing by Robert Louis Stevenson about? Yes, friends, I agree with you. This poem is about a child that's on a swing, and they go higher and higher, and they see many different things when they're on their swing. Good job really thinking about what this poem was about. Now, let's think about that third tip that I gave you. When you read poems, you want to make your voice match the rhythm or the beat of the poem. So how can we do that? Well, one way we can do that is by changing our voice when we read certain words, making our voices go higher or lower, louder or softer. Another way we can do that is by looking at the punctuation in the poem and making our voices match the punctuation. Let's look at the second line of the poem. What punctuation do we see at the end of that line? That's right, friends. We see a question mark. And what did we learn in kindergarten earlier this year? What should our voices do when we see a question mark? You got it. Our voices should go up a little bit. So now the second time when we reread this, when we get to that second line, our voices are going to get higher at the end. So our voice will match the punctuation in the poem. What about the punctuation in the fourth line of the poem? What type of punctuation is that? Yes, it is an exclamation point. And what do we know about exclamation points? Right again, when we see an exclamation point, we want to read with excitement. So when we get to the fourth line of the poem, we're going to make our voices read with excitement so it matches the punctuation in the poem. Now, poems usually have a rhythm or a beat. I want you to try and keep this rhythm with me right now. Ready? We're going to clap our hands to hear a rhythm. Ready? Can you do that with me? One more time. Excellent clapping, friends. We are going to try and keep that rhythm when we read this poem a second time. Let me remind you of the 3 tips of how to read a poem. Read the words, think about what the poem is about, and make your voice match the rhythm or the beat of the poem. Are you ready to read this poem a second time with me? All right, here we go. The Swing by Robert Louis Stevenson. How do you like to go up in a swing, up in the air so blue? Oh, I do think it the pleasantest thing ever a child can do. Up in the air and over the wall till I can see so wide, rivers and trees and cattle and all over the countryside. Till I look down on the garden green, down on the roof so brown, up in the air I go flying again, up in the air and down. Good job making your voice match the rhythm and the beat of that poem. Now I want to ask you a question. Do you think this is a happy poem or a sad poem? Thinking about the way our voices sounded. Did our voices sound happy or did our voices sound sad? Yes, this is a happy poem. Our voices were high and loud, and they sounded happy when we read the poem. Making our voice match the words helped us to understand more about the poem. Now, friends, I want you to reread this poem again, but you're going to reread it again with somebody at home. And when you read it with them at home, I want you to remember the 3 tips for reading poetry. You want to read the words, you want to think about what the poem is about, and you want to make your voice match the poem, match the rhythm or the beat of the poem. So read it in more than one way. Read it in more than one rhythm. Have fun with it. Change your voice when you're reading it. Do all sorts of things because poetry is fun and poetry can change. Okay, friends. I hope you have fun reading this poem with a partner a second time and really thinking about the sounds you hear and the words you're saying, and then also discuss with them what the poem is about. And when you're doing your independent reading today, look for some poems on Mayan, or you can have someone help you. Just Google kindergarten poems and just have some fun reading some poetry today. All right, friends, I'll see you later. Bye.